These are directions on how to assemble your materials and take your initial data for your mold lab. The mold lab will actually be done in our next unit, fungi, but we need to start growing it now, which is why we're going to do this today. These directions are only for cohort C. Cohorts A and B, you will be doing this in the classroom. So the first thing you want to do is assemble all your materials. You're going to need a disposable container. You're going to need some bread. You're going to need some kind of mold source. So this is my mold source right here. I got this just out of my yard waste bin. It's like a moldy leaf. Moldy food works really well. You want to be able to see mold on it though. You can see like all this black stuff. That's the mold on this. And then a kitchen scale. So this is my kitchen scale here. So those are the materials you need in order to do this lab. So the first thing you want to do using your kitchen scale is take the initial mass of the container and lid and record that. If you have an option for different units on your kitchen scale, I recommend you use the unit grams. If you don't have an option, you don't have an option and use whatever unit you have. But if you do have an option, go with grams. The reason you want to take the initial mass of the container and lid is because once we are done with this lab, you are throwing this away. That's why in the first slide, it said that you want a disposable container. We don't always know what kind of mold is growing on our bread, and it may not be safe for us to inhale. So at the end, you are just going to throw this away. So then you want to add some mold to your bread and add some water as well. So you can see, right, I was using some kind of black mold. And so you can see like these little black dots. It's hard to tell that I put water on this. But really all I did was like, I took my hand and I held it under the sink and I got it really wet. And then I kind of shook it over my bread. And then I did it again and shook it over my bread. You don't want to saturate it. You don't want your bread falling apart, but mold likes water. And so you do want it to be, pretty wet, right? We know living in Seattle, mold likes damp areas. That's why we get mold in our bathroom, because it's nice and humid and damp. So we want to make sure that we give our mold some water so that it can grow really well. As I said, I was using a leaf that had a bunch of like black mold on it. And so that's why mine looks black. If you have some beautiful green mold that say on an orange peel or something, then you should be able to see it. So you should see some green. If you're using a lovely orange mold, molds, there are all, thousands and thousands of different species of molds. So you could be using something that's white or green or orange or black, all sorts of things. But that's, again, why I'm saying we're going to throw this away at the end because we don't know what that mold is. So now we're just setting up, right? We're getting some mold on our bread. Technically, you don't need any. It will mold or mold will grow on its own. There's just mold spores in the air. That's where mold comes from. But this is really going to jumpstart it and make this a lab that we can really do in about 3 weeks. So then you want to take the total mass of the closed container, the bread, the mold, the water, so everything, and then subtract the mass of the container to get the mass of the bread, mold, and water. And then obviously you want to record that. Sorry, let me turn the ringer off my phone there. Okay, and so the idea here, right, if we see this total mass right here, and you can see that there's the bread in the container, but the total mass right here is 50 grams. So if that's 50 grams is the total mass minus the 16 grams, which was the initial container mass, that gives us 34 grams of the bread, mold, and water. And again, the reason we're doing it this way, some of you are like, well, but there's this little tare button right here where I can zero out the scale. But at the end, if we were to do that, we would have to somehow get rid of the container, and we're not going to. At the end, right, we're going to have, hopefully, all this lovely mold growing on our bread in this container. We're not going to want to open that back up. So that's where at the end, you're going to take the total mass and again, subtract the container. Okay. So make sure you're recording this stuff. So that's how you get your initial mass of your bread and your mold and your water. And then the only other thing you need to do is put the container in a safe place for the next few weeks. So I put mine up on top of my refrigerator. wherever is going to be safe. What you don't want is somebody in your family to find it, over, say next week or in 2 weeks and go, oh, what's all this moldy stuff? I'm going to throw it away. And now you no longer have your experiment. So, maybe you put a sticky note on it that says biology project, do not touch or whatever. But that is how you're going to set it up. And then once you've set it up, make sure you go back to the predictions. So you're making some predictions about what you think is going to happen to the mass of the bread, mold, and water. So like the mass of everything other than the container when we relook at this in a few weeks. All right, please, obviously, email, or you can even call me on Teams if you have questions on how to do this. But make sure you get this set up. All right. Thank you for listening.